January 15th, 2015. 10 a.m. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Graves stares at his radar display and freezes. There's an object hovering on his screen. But when he checks the thermal camera, there's no heat signature. So this thing, it exists, but it doesn't exist. Graves hits the throttle, closes in. The object suddenly rotates 90 degrees, defying every law of physics he's ever learned. In that moment, Graves realizes this technology isn't human. The Pentagon will hide this footage for 2 years. But the question is, why? And how many more incidents happened before this one? By the end of this video, what you learn will change everything you thought you knew about UFOs. The USS Theodore Roosevelt is a city at sea, over 1,100 feet long, displacing 100,000 tons, powered by 2 nuclear reactors that could run for 20 years without refueling. It carries 90 aircraft, F/A, 18 Super Hornets, A, 18 G Growlers, E, 2 C Hawkeyes, MH, 60 helicopters. 5,000 sailors and officers live aboard, working in 12-hour shifts, sleeping in narrow bunks stacked 3 high, eating in mess halls that serve 18,000 meals a day. At any given moment, the carrier is surrounded by a protective bubble of awareness extending 200 miles in every direction. The ship's spy, one radar system can track 100 targets simultaneously. E-2C Hawkeye aircraft orbit overhead, their powerful radars scanning the horizon. Destroyers and cruisers sail in formation, adding their sensors to the network. Every aircraft, every ship, every submarine within 200 miles is tracked, identified, cataloged. Or at least, that's the theory. In December 2014, the Theodore Roosevelt Battle Group was conducting training exercises off the coast of Virginia. The Atlantic Ocean in winter is cold, gray, and unforgiving. Waves reach 15 feet. Wind gusts hit 40 knots. But the weather doesn't stop the training. It never does. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Graves had been assigned to Strike Fighter Squadron 11, the Red Rippers, for 8 months. At 32 years old, he'd been flying F/A, 18 Super Hornets, for nearly a decade. He'd logged over 1,500 flight hours. He'd flown combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan. He knew his aircraft inside and out, every switch, every gauge, every system. The F/A, 18 Super Hornet is a marvel of engineering. Twin engines, each producing 22,000 pounds of thrust. Top speed, Mach 1.8. Combat radius, 450 nautical miles. The aircraft is equipped with an APG-79 active electronically scanned array radar capable of tracking multiple targets at ranges exceeding 100 miles. It carries an ASQ 228 advanced targeting forward-looking infrared pod, at FLIR for short, a sophisticated thermal imaging camera that can detect the heat signature of an aircraft from 50 miles away. In short, the Super Hornet is designed to see everything, track everything, kill everything. But in December 2014, Graves and his squadron started seeing things that didn't make sense. It started with the radar returns. Graves was in the carrier's intelligence center, a windowless room deep in the ship, lit by the glow of dozens of computer monitors. The air was cool, kept at 68 degrees to prevent the electronics from overheating. The only sound was the hum of cooling fans and the occasional beep of a radar contact. Lieutenant Danny Acoyne sat at a console, staring at a radar display. He was the squadron's weapons systems officer, responsible for tracking threats and coordinating defensive measures. He'd been on watch for 6 hours, and his eyes were tired. But what he was seeing on the screen kept him alert. "Graves, come look at this," Acoyne said. Graves walked over. On the screen, a cluster of radar returns hovered 80 miles east of the carrier. They were stationary. Altitude, 30,000 feet. "How long have they been there?" Graves asked. 5 hours. Maybe longer. They were there when I came on watch." Graves frowned. Keeping an aircraft airborne for 5 hours wasn't impossible. Commercial airliners did it all the time. But commercial airliners didn't hover in one spot. They moved. They followed flight paths. They climbed. They descended. These objects weren't moving. What about the IFF? Graves asked. IFF, Identification Friend or Foe, was a transponder system that allowed aircraft to identify themselves. Every civilian and military aircraft had one. Nothing, a coin said. No transponder signal. No radio communication. No filed flight plan. Graves stared at the screen. 5 hours. No movement. No identification. What about drones? He suggested. A coin shook his head. No drone has that kind of endurance. Not at 30,000 feet. And look at this. He toggled a control. The display switched to historical mode, showing the object's movements over the past 24 hours. Graves' blood ran cold. The objects had appeared at dawn, 0630 hours. They'd hovered at 30,000 feet for several hours. Then, without warning, they dropped to sea level in seconds. The radar calculated the descent rate, over 30,000 feet per minute. That translated to an acceleration of over 100 gs. To put that in perspective, a human body can withstand about 9 gs before losing consciousness. Fighter pilots, trained and equipped with G-suits, can briefly withstand 12 gs. Above that, blood stops flowing to the brain. Organs start to rupture. Bones break. 100 gs would turn a human body into paste. And yet, the radar returns remained solid, consistent, real. Sir, a coin said quietly. What are we looking at? Graves didn't answer. He didn't have an answer, but he was beginning to suspect that whatever these things were, they weren't human. The next morning, Commander Scott Wilson called a meeting of the entire squadron. The ready room was packed. 20 pilots, 15 weapons systems officers, half a dozen intelligence analysts. Everyone squeezed into the rows of leather chairs, still damp from the previous briefing. Wilson stood at the front, arms crossed. He was a career Navy officer, 45 years old, with gray hair and a lined face that spoke of too many deployments and too little sleep. He didn't waste time. Gentlemen, we have a problem. He clicked a remote. The screen behind him lit up with a radar plot. For the past 2 weeks, we've been tracking unidentified contacts in our operating area. They appear at dawn. They hover for hours. Then they drop to sea level and disappear. This has happened every single day for 14 days. Murmurs rippled through the room. Wilson clicked again. A graph appeared, altitude versus time. The line showed a vertical drop from 30,000 feet to sea level in less than 5 seconds. The acceleration rates we're measuring are impossible, Wilson continued. We're talking 60, 80, sometimes over 100 gs. No aircraft can withstand that. No pilot can survive that. Hell, no structure built by human hands can take that kind of stress. Silence. We've ruled out equipment malfunction, Wilson said. These returns appear on multiple systems simultaneously. Ship radar, airborne radar, Aegis tracking. They're real. A hand went up. Lieutenant Alex Dietrich, one of the few female pilots in the squadron. Sir, has anyone visually confirmed these objects? Wilson's jaw tightened. That's why you're here. Starting tomorrow, we're flying intercept missions. Full sensor packages. At FLIR pods. Gun cameras. We need visual confirmation. We need to know what the hell we're dealing with. He paused, looked around the room. And one more thing. This doesn't leave this room. No discussing this with other squadrons. No posting on social media. No calls home to your wife or girlfriend or whoever. Whatever this is, it's classified. Need to know only. And right now, we're the only ones who need to know. The pilots filed out in silence. Graves remained in his seat, staring at the graph. 100 gs. Nothing human could survive 100 gs. So what the hell were they about to intercept? January 10th, 2015. 0540 hours. The flight deck of the USS Theodore Roosevelt before dawn is controlled chaos. In the darkness, lit only by the red glow of the deck lights, dozens of sailors in color-coded jerseys move with practiced precision. Yellow jerseys, aircraft directors, guide jets into position. Purple jerseys, fuel handlers, connect hoses to the aircraft. Green jerseys, catapult, and arresting gear crew prepare the launch systems. The noise is deafening. Jet engines scream. Steam hisses from the catapults. The carrier itself groans and creaks as it cuts through 10-foot swells. Ryan Graves climbed the ladder to his cockpit. His aircraft, an F divided by a -18F Super Hornet, tail number 307, sat on catapult 2, engines already running. The plane captain, a 19-year-old kid from Oklahoma, helped Graves strap in. 5-point harness, shoulder straps, lap belt, leg restraints. Graves ran through his pre-flight checks. Fuel, 10,000 pounds. Hydraulics, nominal. Avionics, online. At FLIR-Pod, armed and tracking. His radio crackled. Ripper 11, this is Air Boss. You are cleared for launch. Winds 280 at 25 knots. Ceiling unlimited. Contact departure on button 6. Ripper 11, roger. Graves replied. The catapult officer, the shooter, stood on the deck, visible through Graves' canopy. He held up 2 fingers, catapult 2. Then he twirled his hand in a circle, full power. Graves advanced the throttles to full military power. The twin F-414 engines roared. The entire aircraft shuddered, straining against the holdback bar. The shooter dropped to one knee, touched the deck with 2 fingers, then pointed forward. The catapult fired. In 2.5 seconds, Graves went from 0 to 165 miles per hour. The acceleration slammed him back into his seat, with 3.5 GS of force. The ocean rushed up, black, endless, terrifying. Then the nose lifted. The wheels left the deck. He was flying. The sun rose as Graves climbed through 10,000 feet. At 25,000 feet, the sky transitioned from deep purple to brilliant blue. The clouds below glowed orange and gold. For a moment, just a moment, Graves allowed himself to appreciate the beauty of it. Then his radar pinged. Contact. Bearing 072 degrees. Range 35 miles. Altitude 24,000 feet. Graves felt his pulse quicken. This was it. This was what they'd been briefed about. He keyed his radio. Ripper 12, you got that contact? Affirm. I'm tracking. Ripper 12 was Lieutenant Sarah Chun, Graves' wingman. She was flying 5,000 feet above and 2 miles behind, providing top cover. Graves adjusted his heading. The contact didn't move. He closed the distance. 30 miles, 25 miles, 20 miles. At 15 miles, his radar warning receiver chirped. Someone, or something, was tracking him. Graves' heart rate spiked. He activated his FLIR-Pod, the thermal imaging camera mounted under the fuselage. The pod slewed toward the contact. The screen in Graves' cockpit flickered, adjusted, focused, and there it was. A sphere. Dark, smooth, approximately 40 feet in diameter. No wings, no tail, no exhaust, no heat signature, and it was rotating. Graves blinked, rubbed his eyes, looked again. The sphere was still there, still rotating, slowly, steadily, the entire object turning on its vertical axis like a gyroscope. Ripper 12, I have visual, Graves said, trying to keep his voice steady. You seeing this? Affirm. What is that? I don't know. Graves zoomed the FLIR camera. The sphere filled his screen. It was perfectly smooth. No seams, no rivets, no markings. 2 small protrusions extended from either side, like stubby wings, but they were far too small to provide any aerodynamic lift. The sphere continued to rotate, once every 5 seconds. Mechanical. Precise. Graves' hands were sweating inside his gloves. He'd been flying fighters for 10 years. He'd intercepted Russian bombers, Iranian jets, unidentified aircraft of every kind. But he'd never seen anything like this. Then the sphere moved. Not gradually, not with visible acceleration. It just moved. One moment it was 10 miles away. The next moment it was 15 miles away. Graves checked his airspeed. 420 knots. He was traveling at 483 miles per hour. The sphere had just moved 5 miles in under 3 seconds. That meant it had accelerated to over 6,000 miles per hour. Mach 8. Impossible. Graves' breath came in short gasps. His training told him to maintain situational awareness, stay calm, assess the threat. But his brain was screaming that this couldn't be real. Ripper 11, say again your position. Chen's voice snapped him back to reality. I'm tracking the contact, Graves said. It's moving. Fast. How fast? Graves didn't answer. He was watching the sphere make another maneuver. It rotated 90 degrees, not rolled, not pitched, but rotated, the entire object pivoting on an invisible axis. Then it accelerated perpendicular to its original trajectory, against the wind, with no visible means of propulsion. Graves followed with the ETFLR camera. The pod's recording system was capturing everything, every frame, every impossible movement. The sphere hovered for another 30 seconds. Then, without warning, it vanished. One frame, sphere. Next frame, empty sky. Graves stared at his screen. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. Ripper 12, contact lost. I say again, contact lost. Roger. RTB. Return to base. Yes, that's what they needed to do. Affirm. Ripper flight RTB. Graves banked left, heading back toward the carrier. His mind was racing. What the hell had he just seen? The intelligence office aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt was located 3 decks below the flight deck. It was a small, windowless room with fluorescent lights that buzzed constantly. The walls were covered with maps, satellite photos, and threat assessments. The air smelled of coffee, sweat, and electronics. Graves sat across a metal table from 2 men. One was Navy Commander Mike Thompson, the carrier's senior intelligence officer. The other was civilian. He wore khakis and a polo shirt. No name tag. No ID badge visible. Graves assumed he was CIA, or DIA, or NSA, or one of the other alphabet agencies that operated in the shadows. Between them sat a laptop. On the screen, paused footage from Graves' ETFLR pod. Walk me through it again, the civilian said. His voice was flat. No accent. No emotion. Graves sighed. He'd already told the story twice. I picked up the contact on radar at 35 miles. Bearing 072. Altitude 24,000 feet. I closed to visual range and activated the targeting pod. The object was approximately 40 feet in diameter. Spherical. 2 small protrusions on the sides. It was rotating on its vertical axis. The civilian nodded. Speed of rotation? Approximately 1 rotation every 5 seconds. And then, it moved. Instantaneously. No visible acceleration. It covered 5 miles in under 3 seconds. The civilian's expression didn't change. That's over Mach 8. Yes, sir. And you're certain it wasn't a sensor error? Graves felt a flash of anger. Sir, I had visual confirmation for my targeting pod. Ripper 12 had radar confirmation. The footage is right there. He gestured at the laptop. This wasn't a sensor error. The civilian leaned back in his chair, stared at Graves for a long moment. Lieutenant Commander, I'm going to be very clear with you. What you recorded is now classified top secret SCI. You will not discuss this incident with anyone, and I mean anyone, outside this room. You will not mention it in your after-action report. You will file a standard training flight debrief and move on. Do you understand? Graves' jaw tightened. Sir, with all due respect, this is a national security issue. Whatever that thing is. Do you understand? A long silence. Yes, sir. The civilian closed the laptop. Good. You're dismissed. Graves stood, walked to the door, paused. Sir, can I ask one question? The civilian looked up. What? How many other pilots have reported these things? The civilian's expression didn't change. That's classified. Graves walked out. The steel door clanged shut behind him. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall. His hands were still shaking. He'd just seen something that defied every law of physics he knew. He'd recorded it. Multiple witnesses had confirmed it, and the government had just locked it away. Ryan Graves didn't know it at the time, but his encounter was not unique. It was part of a pattern that stretched back decades. 11 years earlier, November 14th, 2004, off the coast of San Diego, Commander David Fravor was flying an F divided by a -18C Hornet from the USS Nimitz when he received an unusual radio call. Ripper 110, this is Princeton. We have multiple contacts for you to investigate. The USS Princeton was an Aegis cruiser equipped with the Spy 1 radar system one of the most powerful radar arrays in the world. If Princeton was tracking something unusual, it was worth investigating. Fravor descended to 20,000 feet. Below, the Pacific Ocean stretched to the horizon, calm, blue, endless. Then he saw it. Something in the water, oval-shaped, maybe 50 feet long, just below the surface, creating a disturbance pattern. White water, like something large, was thrashing just beneath the waves. And above it, hovering maybe 50 feet off the water, was an object. White, smooth, shaped like a tic-tac candy, about 40 feet long. No wings, no exhaust, no rotor, just hovering. Fravor started a descent. The tic-tac reacted immediately. As Fravor spiraled clockwise, the object spiraled counterclockwise, maintaining a constant distance. It was mirroring his movements. Fravor broke off the spiral and dove straight at the object. The tic-tac accelerated. No, that's not the right word. It disappeared and reappeared 60 miles away. Fravor leveled off, breathing hard. His wingman, Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate, was shouting over the radio. "Skipper, you seeing this?" "Yeah, I'm seeing it." "What the hell is it?" Fravor didn't answer, because he didn't know. Later, another pilot from the squadron, Lieutenant Commander Chad Underwood, flew to the location where the object had reappeared. He locked it with his FLIR pod, recorded it. The footage would later become known as the Tic Tac video. Like Graves' encounter 11 years later, the footage was classified immediately. The pilots were told not to discuss it, but the reports kept coming. 2007, 2009, 2011, 2013, 2014, 2015. Dozens of incidents, hundreds of witnesses, military pilots, radar operators, ship crews, all of them describing the same thing. Objects with no visible means of propulsion. Objects that could hover silently. Objects that could accelerate instantaneously. Objects that defied the laws of physics. And the military was doing nothing about it. Inside the Pentagon, a small group of people were paying attention. In 2007, Senator Harry Reid of Nevada was approached by a constituent, Robert Bigelow, a billionaire aerospace entrepreneur. Bigelow had been privately funding UFO research for years. He told Reid about the military reports, the pilot testimonies, the radar data. Reid was skeptical, but he was also curious. He called a meeting with two colleagues, Senators Daniel Inouye and Ted Stevens. Together, they secured $22 million in black budget funding for a classified program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ADIP. The program was run by a career intelligence officer named Luis Elizondo. Elizondo had spent 20 years investigating unconventional threats for the Department of Defense. He'd hunted terrorists in Afghanistan, tracked narco-traffickers in South America, investigated weapons programs in hostile nations, but nothing prepared him for ADIP. Elizondo's team collected reports from across the military. They analyzed radar data. They interviewed witnesses. They consulted with physicists, aerospace engineers, propulsion experts. The conclusion was always the same. These objects represented technology far beyond current human capabilities. But despite the evidence, despite hundreds of credible reports, ADIP struggled to get anyone in the Pentagon to take it seriously. In 2012, funding was quietly cut. The program officially ended. Elizondo continued the work unofficially, on his own time, using his security clearance to access classified reports. But by 2017, he'd had enough. On October 4th, 2017, Elizondo submitted his resignation to Secretary of Defense James Mattis. In his resignation letter, he wrote, "Why aren't we spending more time and effort on this issue? Despite overwhelming evidence that we are being visited by highly advanced technology, we continue to ignore the obvious. I can no longer contribute to a system that marginalizes critical threats to our national security." Then Elizondo did something unprecedented. December 16th, 2017, the New York Times published an article that sent shockwaves around the world. Glowing auras and black money. The Pentagon's mysterious UFO program. The article revealed the existence of ADIP. It included statements from Luis Elizondo. It quoted military pilots, and it included 3 videos. One was the Tic Tac video from 2004. Another was called Go Fast, footage of an object skimming the ocean surface at high speed. The third was called Gimbal. Ryan Graves footage. The videos went viral within hours. Millions of views, thousands of articles, news segments on every major network. For the first time in history, the U.S. government was admitting, however reluctantly, that its military had encountered objects it couldn't explain. The Pentagon's initial response was dismissive. Spokespeople said the videos showed unidentified aerial phenomena, but offered no further comment. But the public wouldn't let it go. In April 2020, the Department of Defense officially released the 3 videos. In a brief statement, they acknowledged, the aerial phenomena observed in the videos remain characterized as unidentified. That word, unidentified, was significant, not explained, not debunked, not misidentified, unidentified. In June 2021, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a report to Congress. Preliminary Assessment, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. The report analyzed 144 UAP incidents between 2004 and 2021. Of those 144 incidents, the government could explain one. The other 143 remained unidentified. 2023. A secure conference room deep inside the Pentagon. Former intelligence officer David Grush sat across from 2 congressional investigators. The room was swept for bugs twice daily. No phones, no recording devices, just 3 people and a stack of classified documents. Grush had spent years working inside the Pentagon's UAP task force. He'd held a top-secret/sensitive compartmented information clearance. He'd seen things that kept him awake at night. Now he was about to go public. "What I'm about to tell you," Grush said quietly, "will sound insane, but I have documentation, I have witness testimony, and I have first-hand knowledge of programs that have been hidden from Congress for decades." The investigators leaned forward. Grush took a breath. The United States government has been running a crash retrieval program since at least the 1930s. We have recovered craft of non-human origin, multiple craft, and we've been reverse engineering them. Silence. He went public. One investigator cleared his throat. "You're saying we have alien spacecraft?" "I'm saying we have craft that didn't come from Earth. Whether they're extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or something else, I don't know. But they're not human, and the government has been lying about it for nearly a century." Grush pulled a folder from his briefcase. Inside were documents, heavily redacted, but still readable. Program names, budget allocations, facility locations. "There are programs within programs," Grush continued, "compartmented to the point where even the Secretary of Defense doesn't have access. People who've tried to investigate have been threatened, careers destroyed. Some have disappeared." The investigators exchanged glances. "Mr. Grush, if what you're saying is true, it is true. And I'm not the only one who knows. There are dozens of us. Scientists, engineers, military officers. We've all seen the same things. We've all been told to keep quiet." Grush paused. "But I'm done being quiet." 6 months later, Grush would testify before Congress in a public hearing. His testimony would make international headlines. The Pentagon would deny his claims, but the damage was done. The wall of secrecy was cracking. There was one pattern Elizondo's team at ATIP had noticed, a pattern that terrified them. UAPs showed up near nuclear facilities, repeatedly. March 16, 1967, Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. Captain Robert Salas was on duty in a launch control center 60 feet underground. His job, monitor 10 Minuteman nuclear missiles, each armed with a 1.2 megaton warhead, each capable of destroying a city. At 0830 hours, the phone rang. It was the topside security guard. His voice was shaking. "Sir, we have a situation. There's something hovering over the front gate." "What kind of something?" Salas asked. "I don't know, sir. It's glowing. Red. Just hovering there. Not moving." Salas felt a chill run down his spine. "Keep watching it. I'm sending backup. Before he could make the call, alarm started screaming. Missile 1 offline. Missile 2 offline. Missile 3 offline. One by one, all 10 missiles went offline. No launch capability. No response to commands. Salas stared at his console in disbelief. These missiles had multiple redundant systems, multiple fail-safes. The odds of all 10 failing simultaneously were astronomical, unless something made them fail. Topside, the security guards reported the glowing object ascending rapidly, then disappearing. The missiles came back online 4 hours later. Air Force investigators found no mechanical failure, no sabotage, no explanation. The incident was classified. The guards were debriefed and told never to speak of it. But Salas remembered, and decades later, he went public. His testimony matched dozens of others. UAPs hovering over nuclear sites, missiles going offline. No explanation ever provided. Whatever these objects were, they were interested in humanity's most destructive weapons. Why? Were they monitoring us? Warning us? Assessing whether we posed a threat? Nobody knew. But the pattern was clear. On May 17, 2022, Ryan Graves sat before the House Intelligence Committee. The hearing was televised. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Congressman Andre Carson leaned forward. Commander Graves, in your professional opinion, what are these objects? Graves took a breath. Sir, I don't know. What I can tell you is that these objects demonstrated flight characteristics far beyond any known technology. They operated in restricted airspace, without authorization. They displayed awareness of our presence and reacted to our movements. Whatever they are, they represent either a massive intelligence failure or a reality we're not prepared to confront. Silence. Carson nodded. Thank you for your testimony. And for your courage. There was one pattern Elizondo's team at ADIP had noticed. A pattern that terrified them. UAPs showed up near nuclear facilities. Repeatedly. March 16, 1967. Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. Captain Robert Salas was on duty in a launch control center 60 feet underground. His job? Monitor 10 Minuteman nuclear missiles, each armed with a 1.2 megaton warhead, each capable of destroying a city. At 0830 hours, the phone rang. It was the topside security guard. His voice was shaking. Sir, we have a situation. There's something hovering over the front gate. What kind of something? Salas asked. I don't know, sir. It's glowing. Red. Just hovering there. Not moving. Salas felt a chill run down his spine. Keep watching it. I'm sending backup. Before he could make the call, alarm started screaming. Missile 1 offline. Missile 2 offline. Missile 3 offline. One by one, all 10 missiles went offline. No launch capability. No response to commands. Salas stared at his console in disbelief. These missiles had multiple redundant systems, multiple fail-safes. The odds of all 10 failing simultaneously were astronomical, unless something made them fail. Topside, the security guards reported the glowing object ascending rapidly, then disappearing. The missiles came back online 4 hours later. Air Force investigators found no mechanical failure, no sabotage, no explanation. The incident was classified. The guards were debriefed and told never to speak of it. But Salas remembered, and decades later, he went public. His testimony matched dozens of others. UAPs hovering over nuclear sites, missiles going offline. No explanation ever provided. Whatever these objects were, they were interested in humanity's most destructive weapons. Why? Were they monitoring us? Warning us? Assessing whether we posed a threat? Nobody knew. But the pattern was clear. So what are they? Let's eliminate the easy answers. Not birds. Birds don't rotate on their axis at 25,000 feet. Not balloons. Balloons don't move against 40-knot winds. Not drones. No drone has the range or endurance to operate 200 miles offshore for 12 hours. Not sensor glitches. These objects appear on multiple independent systems simultaneously, which leaves 3 possibilities. 1. Secret human technology. Possible, but unlikely. The technology would represent a breakthrough greater than the invention of flight itself. And if China or Russia had it, they'd use it. 2. Natural phenomena. Again, unlikely. Natural phenomena don't react intelligently to military aircraft. 3. Non-human intelligence, which leaves the possibility nobody wants to say out loud. These objects aren't human, whether they're extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or something we don't yet have words for is unknown. But the evidence suggests one conclusion: we are not alone, and whatever's out there has been watching us for a very long time. Ryan Graves continues to speak publicly. He testifies before Congress. He advocates for pilots to report what they see without fear, because he knows the truth. The gimbal video is real. The encounters are real. The question is, what happens next? The footage is undeniable. The witnesses are credible. The government has admitted it doesn't have answers. We are living in a moment of disclosure. Slow, reluctant, but undeniable. The truth is emerging. And the truth is this: we are not alone. We have never been alone. The gimbal video is just the beginning.